How can you use the CRP-1 flight computer to calculate heading and ground speed, given airspeed, track, and wind vector? Hello, it's Matt here from heliquiz.com. Today we're going to be using the wind down method of calculating ground speed and heading so that we can fly an accurate track or course. Let's start with our forecast wind at our cruising altitude. Today it's 30 knots blowing from 140. So let's pick up the CRP-1 and let's set the wind direction using the rotating ring. So we are changing the rotating ring here and we're getting 140 directly under the index mark. So we've set the wind direction, now we need to set the wind strength. So we need to put the blue dot directly over an easy to use reference point. Nothing to do with the wind strength at the moment, we're just finding an easy to use reference point. So we're putting the blue dot, I'm going to choose the 100 knot speed arc as my reference point. Okay, so the blue dot directly over the 100 knot speed arc. And then we're going to take our pen or pencil, I'm using a water soluble felt tip pen, and we're going to count down. This is the wind down method. We're going to count down by 30 knots. So 10 knots, 20 knots, 30 knots. And I'm going to place a mark directly over 30 knots. And now I'm going to do something which you don't see done so often on demonstration videos like this. Instead of just placing a mark at the end of the wind, I'm actually going to draw the wind vector in with a line. And I'm going to put the wind direction on with 3 arrows. If we turn it to the left, you can see the wind vector more easily. Why do I do that? Well, it helps us understand a little bit about where the wind's coming from, and it helps us avoid silly mistakes. Okay, so that's the wind done. Now we need to set our course and our true airspeed. So we're actually going to use a true airspeed of 100 knots, and just like we did when we were setting the wind, we're just going to put the blue dot over the 100 knot mark, and we're going to set a course of 090. So we need to put 090 under the index mark at the top by rotating the ring. There's 090, so the two line up just like that. Easy. Okay, because we've drawn the wind vector on and because we've got some arrows on it, we can understand really easily that the wind is blowing like this. Our aircraft is flying in this direction and the wind is blowing off the right of our nose from the front of us. And that's going to help us as we go on. So if the wind is blowing from the right, that means that we're drifting to the left. In order to maintain an accurate track or course, we're going to need to steer a little bit to the right to compensate. How much to the right? Well, the amount is shown here. We can see that we're drifting by 10 degrees, 12, 14, about 16 degrees to the left. So in order to counteract that, we probably need to steer something like 16 degrees to the right. So our current track is 090. Our heading, however, needs to be something to the right of that. So let's add 16 degrees on to 090. Why 16 degrees? Because we get it from this drift angle. So 90 plus 16 takes us to 106, and I'm rotating the ring here. I've got 106 underneath the index mark now. Okay, now some methods ask you to stop at this point, but actually if we look at the drift angle now, it's reading something like 13 degrees, not 16, but 13. So let's try our compensation again. Let's go back to 090, and this time let's add on 13 degrees, not 16. So 090 plus 13 degrees gives us 103. There's 103 set under the index mark. And now let's have a look at the drift figures. Well, that's 14 degrees, that's maybe 13.5 degrees. What we're looking for here is no change in this drift figure between one iteration and the next. So 103 gives us 14 degrees. If we went back to 090 and added on 14 degrees, we get 104, and that stayed at 13.5, 14 degrees. So we're going to call our final heading 104. At this point, we can also find our ground speed, and we can do that by looking at the speed arcs. We've got 50, 60, 70, 80, and our mark here is on the 78 knot point. So final figures, our heading is 104, our ground speed is 78 knots. But stop, calculators are notoriously confusing, especially ones like this. So we're going to do what's called a gross error check. We're going to use the information that we've got about the wind, and we're going to use common sense just to try and work out whether the answers that we've got make sense or not. So first of all, we know that the wind is blowing from in front of us, and that means that our ground speed has got to be slower than our airspeed. And it is. Our true airspeed was 100 knots. Our ground speed is 78 knots. The wind is blowing from the right, so it's blowing us left. That means we need to steer right. Steering right of 90 degrees takes us somewhere in this direction. So 104, which was our final answer for the heading, makes sense. Okay, and that is the end of our calculation. If this video has been of help, please click the thumbs up or like. Come and visit us for more videos and aviation information at heliquiz.com. Thanks for watching.